So, what is the last thing that Mary saw? You'll find out soon. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass. I'm going to talk about The Last Thing Mary Saw, which is debuting at Fantasia on August 15th, 2021, today. And it's coming to Shudder in 2022. It is an atmospheric period horror film. It's set in I think it's 1843, so it's set before in the like New England type wilderness. And it's a really stylish film. It's a really slow building film, and it does a really good job of kind of keeping the viewers on edge and building out this world and this family that we learn more about, and some horrible things happen to them. So I'm going to talk about the film. I'm going to do the three things I like, three things I didn't like about the movie, and then talk about the ending. So if you haven't seen it, and that's probably a lot of you because it's just debuting at Fantasia today, you probably don't want to watch this. You probably want to wait to see it because there are some surprises. But if you've already seen it, if you want to talk about the ending, because the ending is a little bit confusing and I'm a little confused, so I'd love to talk more about it, then let's keep going. So in The Last Thing Mary Saw, you have essentially two main characters. You've got Mary, who's played by Stefanie Scott, who is a daughter in this family. It's kind of a large kind of pilgrim-like family. I mean, I only call them pilgrims because they dress in, old New England clothes, but I'm not certain. I think they are religious, but I'm not sure which one. And then you also have a servant girl, I guess, Eleanor, played by Isabelle Fuhrman. And the central conflict here is that Mary and Eleanor have feelings for each other and are exploring them in a very conservative, puritanical type environment, which you can imagine are not they're not looked kindly on. And it's kind of a family that that has secrets but doesn't have secrets. Like, people whisper about things and everyone knows everyone's business, but it's not really brought up. And so, but Mary and Eleanor are discovered, or at least raise suspicions, and are punished. And there's some really interesting, brutal scenes, like where they have to essentially, I think it's receive penance, where they have to pray essentially, but they pray on like rice. And so the rice, they're praying on the rice, and it drains all the like moisture from their knees. And so their knees look all red and cracked because they've been praying on rice for hours. And little things like that, little great touches that appear to be accurate with the time. Like that totally seems like something that you would do in that time period, and also are subtle ways to really show the brutality in this family that doesn't outwardly have much brutality. So the film is kind of about them trying to keep their secret and also keep seeing each other in the confines of this family house that doesn't really have many places to hide. And so the film is about them trying to explore that and also avoid the adults, and especially the matriarch of the family, who are punishing them. So three things I liked about the film. The first is the style. This film drips with style. The house looks period accurate. All the costumes look period accurate. The food preparation looks amazing. They have a book is kind of a central piece of this, that it's like a forbidden book, and it is wonderfully done, and it looks authentic. All the punishments feel authentic. Everything about this film feels authentic. It feels like it pulls you back into 1843. The characters are all interesting, but also no one pulls you out of this wonderful setting. And so it really lets you transport yourself into this family, into this dynamic that kind of forms the main conflict in this film. The second thing I loved about this film is just the inherently sinister nature of this setting. So you're somewhere in New England, I think, and they're kind of out on their own in the woods. And so there's no neighbors, obviously, because they're kind of frontier people. They have candles for lights, so everything is a little bit dark, and so it leaves this sinister edge throughout. Even in the normal lit shots, they look like something bad is going to happen because there's only candlelight. There's all these shadows and dark corners. They're out on the frontier, so there's noises from nature and wind, and so the sound causes another like sinister aspect of it. There's creaks of the house. There's nature noise just outside. It really sets you up for this wonderfully unsettling type of film. And then something that I really appreciate is because they're out on like the frontier, there's not much noise. Like it is a very quiet, like aside from, the creaks and there's a little bit of subtle music, but when the film really wants to be, it can be very quiet, which means if there's something big happening, it gets your attention. Like at some points in the film, there's a gunshot and that sounds so much bigger because everything else is so muffled. And I think there's also like a something that cracks, like a teacup that falls over and shatters, and that also sounds so big because everything is so quiet. It really makes everything seem so much bigger than it is, and I think that's part of the idea here is that a lot of the transgressions in this household do seem to be bigger to the family than they should be, but that's also the time period and whatnot. The last thing I loved is the cast and the characters. I mean, like I said, the cast is great. They all feel period appropriate. I really liked Stefanie Scott and Isabelle Fuhrman. They were fantastic as Mary and Eleanor. And a surprise person that I really love seeing was Rory Culkin as this character named the Intruder, who he only comes in towards the end, but he kind of steals the scenes. He doesn't really have to do much, but he just inherently is someone that you're drawn to and you want to see what he does. He's a little bit unpredictable as well. And then the matriarch, who's played by Judith Roberts, is another person who is just she's kind of like, she feels like a witch, but the film doesn't have much of a supernatural aspect to it. But she feels like she could be a witch, and as you'll see in the ending, maybe we'll see. The things I didn't love about this, and to be clear, this is a very well done film. So these are just things I didn't really enjoy as much. Is the first is the pace. I mean, the film is a very slow film, and that's fine because it really paints this picture. But there's a lot of scenes in this movie where it's people's suspicions or conversations that don't feel like they're driving the plot forward. It feels like they are giving you backstory. And so there are some very slow sections in this film. Now, they are wonderfully slow because you do get to see more of this world and some more aspects of this family's beliefs and this family's life. But it does slow down. The movie does feel like a long film, even though it's not that long. I think it's about an hour and a half. There are sections that really feel like that not much is happening to progress the story. The second thing I didn't love is the lack of supernatural aspects, because, and again, as you'll see in the ending, like there are supernatural aspects to this film, and so it felt like either go more supernatural or have no supernatural. Like if the film would have had no supernatural aspects, I think that would have been interesting, because you inherently think that something is going to be supernatural and it's not, and you're like, okay, well, that just is how life was out there, everything you saw, and that's how this folklore was. I think that's part of what the director and writer Edoardo Vitaletti was going for. He's kind of drive home these like where these folklore tales and where some of these folk legends came from. But then there are supernatural aspects that are introduced, just not that many. So I kind of wished it would have gone all on one side or all on the other, and not kind of straddle the supernatural line. And the last thing I didn't love, although it's still well done, is the ending. And I think that's just because I felt like there were some things that weren't explained and some things that were kind of left unsaid. And I still have questions, and I imagine people who watched it might, although maybe you paid better attention than I did. And so let's go into the ending. And if you have thoughts on it, if you have other explanations, I'd love to hear it. So the story in this film is told out of order, which is an interesting idea. It's fine, except at the start, it's tough to kind of tell what's happening because you don't know the characters, and you start with, I think, Mary kind of on trial, and then it goes back and forth. And so eventually you figure it out, but it was a little tough to follow at the start. But Mary's on trial, and as the film goes, we find out why. Mary poisoned the matriarch essentially after she tortured Eleanor. And she tortured her in like a supernatural kind of way, which is I think the first instance of supernatural aspects. She like lifted her up and essentially like choked her, but she was like levitating, and these like marks appear on her neck. And so that was kind of the first instance of supernatural aspects, I think. And so Mary poisoned her. She put like some sort of poison in her tea. And then at the funeral, we meet the intruder. The intruder comes to the house. He doesn't come to the funeral, but he comes into the back room, and he has poison that he's supposed to give to Eleanor to then poison the rest of the house. And so he gives the poison, but he demands payment from Eleanor. Essentially, he rapes her in the kitchen during the funeral. And so after that, he gives the poison, and Eleanor is, as you'd imagine, upset and angry. And so she cuts off the intruder's finger as a retaliation. And so the intruder runs off. And also during this, you see the matriarch's finger starts to twitch. So she's dead, but her finger starts to twitch, and it also starts to turn black. So once the poison is all in the tea, Mary then serves the tea to her family, and they all drink the tea. And so they pretty much all die. There's one person who doesn't die. I think it's the father. And I actually think that this was a mistake on Mary's part, but I'm not certain, because she looks a little horrified that her littlest brother, who, to be fair, was a snitch. He did snitch on her, I think. But he got poisoned, and she made a point of giving him a specific cup and like grabbing his shoulder. So I think she expected him to survive, and he didn't. So I think she accidentally poisoned him and didn't poison her father. So her father's the only one that survives, and he's kind of horrified. But essentially she says, like, this is what happens when we have secrets in our family. And I think she killed the family because I assume they all suspected her of poisoning the matriarch. I'm not certain, but it's either that, or she and Eleanor just wanted to live together, and this is the only way that she thought that she could. So I guess everyone's dead. Mary and Eleanor can be together. We're all happy. Or are we? No, we're not, because everyone but the father is dead. She lectures him, and he's a little horrified. And as she's talking to him, boom, the father gets shot. Surprise. And this is those instances where, like, the sound of the gunshot is so big because the film is so quiet, and it just it pops you up. And so you're like, who did it? And the intruder walks through the door, and he has a gun on Mary. I don't know why he shot the father. I'm not certain, but he did. So this is an old flintlock gun. So he sits there and he loads the gun for like 25 seconds. And I was very confused why Mary and Eleanor didn't jump in, because Eleanor clearly has some fire in her. She cut off his finger, so she knows, like, she can physically act and do things to defend herself. And Mary just killed her family, so like she also is capable. I don't know why they just sat there while he sat there and loaded his gun. That felt like a little bit of a strange instance and a little bit of a disconnect. Maybe they were still in shock, but it was weird because it takes him like a while. He like loads, pours the powder, puts the bullet in, stamps it down, then gets ready and then cocks the gun. So the intruder aims at Eleanor and kind of has this long drawn out thing where he is essentially angry at her for cutting his finger off. And so he shoots her, I assume with his other hand, because his index finger on one hand was cut off. So he's probably using his other hand, or maybe he's using his ring finger. I'm not sure. Mary asks the intruder, like, who called you? Who brought you to this house? And he kind of looks back at her. And as she's saying this, the matriarch rises up. So the matriarch, who is dead and poisoned, and like very poisoned because there was like foam coming from her mouth, is now up, and her finger's all black. And then, and so I think the intruder slinks out after this, and the matriarch comes up behind Mary and makes her read from this book, this secret book that they've had, that her and Eleanor were reading. I didn't 100% catch the story, but it seemed like it was a story of two women who were exploring their sexuality, and so it felt very appropriate. And the story that she's reading feels like it could mirror the story in this film. There's aspects of the story that she reads that do happen in the film, and I think that was kind of some of the through line in this movie. And in the book, one of the girls gets her eyes poked out, and so as Mary is reading this, the matriarch pokes Eleanor's eyes out, like, and like blood goes down from her eyes. So I guess the last thing that Mary saw was this book as she was reading it. So then investigators enter the house. They find Mary, they interrogate her, they ask questions. The interesting thing is, I don't think the matriarch is there. So I think that's a hint that we need to draw from this. So they interrogate Eleanor, and eventually, I think they conclude that she killed her family. I don't know if I remember she confessed. It doesn't really necessarily say that, but she's telling the story, so maybe she tells them, and they hang her. Well, so I think as they hang her, I'm not sure what the order is, but as they hang her, it shows a vision of Eleanor lying next to her. So maybe in her mind's eye, the last thing that she saw is Eleanor before she got hung. There could be two meanings to the last thing that Mary saw. But then it pans back behind her, and you see her hand, and one of her fingers is dark black, like the matriarch's, and it starts to twitch. So I don't necessarily know if the matriarch like went into Eleanor and is going to now like use her body and like take her youth, and pretended to die so that then they would leave her alone and then she could have a whole nother life. I'm not sure if that was it, or if Eleanor herself had some sort of witchcraft aspect that now she is going to then, I guess, rise up and move on or something. I don't know. The film leaves some questions, and that's fine. I wish there was a little bit more explanation to really kind of drive it home. But hey, maybe we can have a conversation and we can talk more about it. That's the last thing Mary saw. It is dripping with style. It is such a well-made film, with some story confusion, but that could just be me and me not really understanding what happened. So that is debuting today at Fantasia, and it'll be coming to Shudder in 2022. So look forward to it. It is worth watching. And there's also an interview with Edoardo Vitaletti up on the YouTube channel. So if you want to know more about some of his inspiration for the film, how he made it, you can check that out as well. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot and make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.